Well, at long last, good morning, and welcome to Northwest Unitarian Universalist Church. My script says that I should let you know that we're installing the equipment we need for multi-platform services, and everything doesn't necessarily go smoothly, but you know that already. We had a component this morning that worked yesterday that didn't work this morning, so now we are set. I am Diana Kohler, the worship associate for today's service, and I am delighted that our new interim minister, the Reverend Kevin DeBeck, will deliver his first sermon at Northwest this morning. Also involved in planning and presenting the service, which felt a lot like work today, are Ken Hermanot, our choir director, Alex Myers, our pianist, Ben Gable, our congregational administrator, and Ralph Bruckert, our sound tech. If you are a visitor here and would like us to stay in touch with you, please fill out the visitor form that is in the chat function on Zoom. And the chat box, chatting has been disabled during the service, except for chatting directly with the tech hosts if you're having problems with Zoom. If you can't find the chat function, raise your hand physically. And now, Reverend DeBeck.
Oops. Good morning. My name is the Reverend Kevin DeBeck. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And before I give you the formal good morning this morning, I want to introduce to you our new acting director of religious education, Eva Levanter, sorry.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here with you today. This is my first day, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you, your gifts, and what you bring to our families. I'm looking forward to creating community for our children and collaborating with volunteers. It's going to be a wonderful year, even though we have some challenges ahead of us. So thank you for welcoming me. It's been a really, really great start.
Thank you. Our opening words this morning are from my seminary pal and fellow minister, the Reverend Jo Von Roo, and she says, "Welcome to this space, this sanctuary of peace, where we come not only to create our best selves, but to also do the work of creating a beloved community. We come together today as individuals, much like individual pieces of glass or pottery that are different shapes, sizes, and colors, all of which are broken with imperfect, jagged edges, but are always beautiful. While our pieces may not fit together neatly, it is within this sanctuary, guided by our principles, that we gather together to create a beautiful mosaic, or even online. May this brokenness and beauty you find in one another create peace in this space and fill our hearts with love as we create worship together."
Our announcements this morning include that we have one spot available in a Flint walking tour coming up soon. I'm reading something that's a long ways away. You can contact Sherry Smith if you're interested in that. Our gathering guidelines, we will be sending out a reminder this week, letting you know what to expect when you come to the church in person. Starting next Sunday, the sanctuary looks different with only 50 chairs in it. And so look for that announcement to come to get the specifics. But we will all be wearing our masks unless we're speaking at the podium. You can stay connected with Northwest through the Breeze app on your phone. You can go to our website and sign up for our newsletter, and you can catch up on services you've missed on our YouTube channel. We have a lot of ways we have been connecting even through the pandemic. We actually have yoga in person on Monday and Friday mornings now. There is a morning meditation and yoga Tuesday through Thursdays, which is virtual, I believe. And mindfulness evening meditation every Tuesday at 7 o'clock. There are opportunities for connections through small groups, including our Soul Matters small group, which is the fourth Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. Thursdays noon Zoom to just catch up informally with other people. The Silver Sisters are meeting on the first Sundays at 1 o'clock, and the book club meets on the second Wednesdays at 7 p.m. But it's been moved to September 22nd for the coming month. Our Board of Governors' next meeting will be Thursday, September 9th at 7 o'clock. All are invited to attend. You can participate virtually. And then banter with the board will be the following Thursday, it says, at 11, oh, nope, there's something wrong there. It's not going to be at 11:30 p.m. I think maybe that's a Sunday. Okay, so you don't have to stay up late for that. Your contributions are so important to the church. You can pay online through the Breeze app. You can text to give. And don't forget that you can give through Amazon Smile and the Kroger Community Rewards Program. Our August plate collection is being shared with Freedom House. And we've had a presentation by the executive director with Freedom House about the important work they're doing with people in the Detroit area who are seeking asylum. And now, our prelude. The words from our chalice lighting come to us from the Reverend Betts Weineke. May this flame, symbol of transformation since time began, fire our curiosity, strengthen our wills, and sustain our courage as we seek what is good within and around us.
Thank you very much. Our opening hymn this morning is hymn 1003, and it would be in the teal hymnal, and it's called Where Do We Come From?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery. Mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
What a wonderful thing to hear our choir again. Our reading this morning is from Palm Sunday, an autobiographical collage by Kurt Vonnegut. What should young people do with their lives today? Many things, obviously, but the most daring thing is to create stable communities in which the terrible disease of loneliness can be cured. Our next hymn is number 349, We Gather Together.
We find
Today is an auspicious day. It's my first official day in the pulpit with you all, and I'm looking forward to the many Sundays we'll have together over the course of the next 2 years. As your interim minister, my primary job is to help you all discern who you want as your next settled minister, not specifically the person, but the qualities that you will be looking for. Now, the roadmap to get there is not easily defined. There will be many, many meetings and conversations that will take place over the course of our time together. But in thinking about what will happen over the course of the next 2 years, I'll reflect on something that has been a cornerstone in my life: Star Trek. Yes, I'm a Trekkie. In fact, if you could zoom in, you could see that this stole was made by my intern congregation in Evanston, Illinois. And I'm wearing that in honor of the metaphor I'm using for my sermon today. So you probably are asking yourself, what the heck does Star Trek have to do with interim ministry? Well, I'm reminded of an episode from The Next Generation titled Cause and Effect, which was from that show's 5th season. Now, in general, the Enterprise crew experiences the same thing over and over and over again, and it always ends with the ship being destroyed. It's Data who finally realizes what's going on and creates a solution where the ship doesn't explode. And this is how the repeating finally ends. Well, while we don't have to worry about dropping warp cores or going through time loops, the reason why I'm using this as a metaphor today is that the biggest thing that gets in the way of church growth and change is the thought or feeling said out loud, "It's always been done this way." Now, what I'm about to discuss with you all is not some kind of congregational script that we have to follow that is dictated by either the Mid-America region or the Unitarian Universalist Association. But the changes that will happen will stem from conversations that I've had with leadership and with many of you in just the first 2.5 weeks that I've been here. It's these conversations going forward that will help guide us over the course of our time together. First, I want to tell you all the positives that I've seen so far. Right before my arrival, you all passed the 8th Principle Project. And for those who are uninitiated, the 8th Principle states, we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions and accountability, that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Now, what this means is that this congregation and others like it have decided to take on the task of finding ways of dismantling white supremacy, not only internally in this congregation, but externally in our faith as a whole. It was racism that almost tore the Unitarian Universalist Association apart in the late 1960s during the so-called empowerment controversy. And I'll discuss the meaning and effects of what that was in a later sermon, but if you're anxious to read up more on it, I would recommend a book that was written by the Reverend Mark Morrison Reed titled Revisiting the Empowerment Controversy: Black Power and Unitarian Universalism, if you want to kind of get into the details of what happened over 50 years ago. Now, what this really means over the next 2 years and beyond is that we will be looking at how white supremacy affects everything we do as a congregation, from the structure of worship to the structure of leadership and who and why people come to worship here. And I'm very excited that you all have taken on this task. It will not be a quick or easy one. In fact, the work will succeed me and whoever your next called minister is going to be. But as we've been witnessing, especially over the last 4 years and very much more so during the COVID pandemic, unless we as a society decide to finally deal with the toxic waters of white supremacy, we will not be handing off a better world to our descendants. We need to acknowledge as a society and as a faith where we have done harm. I recently listened to the Renegades podcast, mostly because it starred 2 of my favorite people, Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen. And what they did in their first episode, they talked about the stain of racism in the United States. And at the end of the first episode, Springsteen had this to say, and these are his words. To talk about race means you have to talk about differences. To talk about race, you have to talk about, to some degree, deconstructing the myth of the melting pot, which has never been fundamentally been true. Admitting that a big part of our history has been plunderous and violent and rigged against people of color. We're ashamed. We're ashamed of our collective guilt. We would have to admit and to grieve for what's been done. We would have to acknowledge our own daily complicity and acknowledge our group membership in that we are tied to the history of that racism. By voting to approve the eighth principle is to begin those discussions and to take those discussions out into the wider world. That helps us to create beloved community. That helps to make our society and our world more whole. The Unitarian Universalist Association is also taking on this work too. They are going through the process according to the UUA bylaws and will be subject to a vote at the General Assemblies of 2023, which will be in Pittsburgh, which isn't all that far from here, and 2024 at a site that has not yet been determined. There will be votes over the course of those two General Assemblies to adapt this, and instead of 7 principles, we will now have 8 principles. Another positive I've seen here is our embrace of technology. Other churches and faiths have been kind of doing this sort of thing for years, broadcasting either on television or radio, and of course, online. I feel that we as a faith are kind of late to this game, but the COVID pandemic forced us to break out of "it's always been done this way" thinking, even just a little. We've all had a learning curve when it comes to what doing online worship is or what it would look like. Now, some chose to do Facebook Live, others took to YouTube. In fact, this is where this will be eventually, is on Northwest's YouTube channel. Zoom seems to become the preferred way of doing it, and I'm sure there are many other platforms that are out there that could help us get our message out there, but Zoom seems to be the one that seems to work for most people at this point. And what I've discovered is that you don't have to have a congregation full of online text to pull it off, although it sure does help. The difference that I've seen is that with a dedicated group of people willing to learn and embrace this new way of doing things, it's also taught us to be flexible. In fact, just a week ago, the internet signal coming into the church died, so we all scrambled to go back to our houses and apartments, and we did worship from there. No one complained, and we learned what happened, and it got fixed. Which isn't to say that it won't happen again, because chances are it probably will. But we do have a backup, and we kind of have an idea of what to do in case something like that happens. Now, does this replace face-to-face interaction with one another and being together? Well, no, it really doesn't. But what it does do is that it extends our reach to beyond these walls and beyond our geographical area to spread our good news of beloved community. This is a message that is sorely needed today, as it was sorely needed last summer as the George Floyd protests spread all over the world. I can see a day when we gain new members who never set foot in this sanctuary. In fact, starting last November up till this July, I served a church in upstate New York that was 12 hours away from my home, and I will probably never set foot in their sanctuary. Now, we didn't have classes to learn how to do this in seminary. How to do online worship in case of pandemic, that never came up. But we all adjusted. We all found a way to make this work. And now we can take what we've learned to better serve our community and our world. We can now reestablish contact with members we've lost touch with, or maybe even have moved out of the area. We can become more welcoming to those who necessarily can't make it into church on a Sunday. These are just some of the possibilities that lie before us, and you all have taken the first step into it. Now, in looking ahead over the course of the next couple of years, many of you may be wondering what the transition process is going to look like. Part of the interim process is that if the minister has not been previously worked in an interim basis, the Unitarian Universalist Association recommends that said minister take the interim training that is offered. And to let you all know, I am connected with this. My first class in interim training will be this coming Wednesday. And the other dates that I'll be doing this will be 1 day in September and 4 days in October. By the time we get to November, I will be fully trained as an interim, and I'll have a clearer understanding of what the expectations are on me beyond the usual things that ministers do, like preach on Sunday morning, do rites of passage, and for congregational members, pastoral care and the like. We'll also be having many conversations with you all, so that way you can clarify for yourselves what it is you want in your next settled minister. Some of these things will entail looking at this congregation's history, so that way we can see where we've been to help us figure out where we're going. In fact, I realize today I am your first male minister in 30 years. There will also be a call to start a search committee for said next minister, but those discussions won't start until November at the earliest. There will be other benchmarks that we will be talking about in the future, of which I'll have a better idea once the interim training is done. In the meantime, we need to spend that time getting to know each other, looking at the institutions of the congregation and understanding how and why they work, while doing all the things a UU church does. In some of the early discussions that I've had with some of you, one of the things that has come up periodically is updating the congregational covenant. We are a covenantal religion. What this means is that we get to set the rules of engagement with each other, and we don't have a presbytery or a book of discipline or bishops to answer to. We get to set the rules, and we get to set what happens when someone falls short or steps outside of those rules. With a covenant in place, on the occasion when somebody falls out of covenant, it is a process in which that person can find a way back into covenant with each other, between committees, or with the congregation at large. Human beings are imperfect, and we all carry a certain amount of trauma and brokenness. Sometimes these things will rub up against each other. By having a method to return to a covenantal relationship, it will supply a way to process when a harm has been committed, and will also supply a way to heal in the aftermath. Now, these things I've just mentioned, these are by no means an end-all be-all. There will be many other things that we will talk about and look at and discuss. These are just kind of where we're going to start. I'm looking forward to these discussions and making Northwest an even better congregation, because you all are pretty healthy already. Now, going back to the Star Trek episode I mentioned at the beginning, the one thing that Data does to save the ship from destruction is that he notices the pips on Commander Riker's collar, and he realizes by seeing that, it was his solution, Riker's solution, that solved the problem. In fact, Data's first idea was the reason why the ship kept blowing up over and over again. So Data realized that he was wrong and saw someone else's suggestion and realized that was the better suggestion. So as I ask you all to be as involved as in this interim process as you can, perhaps it will be your suggestion that will move the congregation forward. Perhaps it'll be that small little thing that makes all the difference. And we won't have to worry about starships crashing into each other in case something goes wrong. All we'll have to do is take a step back and review the process. I'm very much looking forward to our time together. Our closing hymn today is hymn number 368. Now let us sing.
Sing
My closing words today are from the Reverend Robin F. Gray, and they say, "We call for this blessing on all sheltered here, whether in body or in spirit. May the flame of our community ignite a love bold enough to share, and in return, may we all be embraced by a love that remains constant in times of sorrow and in days of great gladness. Amen, and blessed be."
Let us carry the light of the chalice in our hearts through the coming week.